Hey, how you guys doing? There you go. Can you hear me? Obsessions. Okay. There was a woman involved, and I was a kid. Well, I was like 17 years old. That's a kid. And the caveat is that she was not real, which has been a trend ever since. Since people have been so open to weird stories tonight, I don't feel that bad. But she was a character in a book. And I was like a troubled kid. I liked to fight. And I got kicked out of my school, and my dad was very upset about it because they worked really hard to put me in that school. And I ended up in this Jesuit school. It was a Catholic Jesuit school. And so I decided that I was going to discipline myself a little bit and make an effort. And they had us read a book, and the teachers there liked to read Jesuit authors that had went to Jesuit schools. So they started reading, we read Joyce, and there was a short story about that priest that smells like urine because he cooks he likes to eat kidneys. And he cooks them, and then so like the felt of his jacket smells like urine. And I thought it was just such a powerful description, especially because in the school where I was going to school at, there was this old priest that was kind of like exactly like the one in the book, and he smelled like urine, and I realized that he probably ate a lot of kidneys. And all of a sudden books were like this weird window into, it was a magical event for me. And then we read Vargas Llosa, who is a Peruvian writer, and he wrote a lot about, it was like his earliest books were a lot about kids. You know, kids that got in trouble and like drank too much and like were like having all kinds of situations in their schools. And in the book that we were reading, it was called Los Cachorros, which is like the cubs. They describe the situation where like there's a kid in a Jesuit school and there's a priest that has a German Shepherd, and the German Shepherd bites the kid. And now the kid gets all these privileges because like the school doesn't want to get in trouble with the family, so he's like an asshole and never fails because he was bitten by the priest's dog. And the same exact thing was happening in my school at the time. There was this guy, Octavio, who was a priest there, and he had these two German Shepherds, and one of the kids from another grade got bit, and it was all very hush-hush, but everybody was talking about it. And I was like, UK, 2 out of 2. So I ventured into the library, which was uncool because I was kind of like the tough kid, so I was like, how do you do this? And how does this work? So I went to the library, and I was like, well, I'm looking for a book. And she was like, what do you want? And I was like, well, I'm interested in authors that went to Jesuit schools. And so the librarian sensed that something was going on. And she looked at me and she said, that's interesting. And anything in specific? I was like, well, I read this story by Joyce, and I read this thing by Vargas Llosa, and there's like this weird connection there, but I want to read somebody that like speaks to somebody my age and here in Colombia, where I'm from, like, is there anybody here? And she said, look, there's a book that was published like 10 years ago, and it's kind of like a cult book amongst teenagers, and because it was a Catholic school and they were very strict, it's like, if your parents give you permission to read the book, I'll give it to you. So I talked to my dad and I said, Dad, I need your permission to get this book out of the library. And he was so excited. He was like, absolutely, yes! Let's go there right now. And he was like very suspicious about the whole thing. He was like, what? So I got the book. Wow. And the book was a tale of, a coming of age tale that had an incredible twist because the main character was a woman. Also like a kid, also like a 17-year-old woman. And she was like an upper middle class girl that went through this whole exploration where like she was like having issues being part of the social class that she belonged to, and she like fought against that, and she goes through this whole journey by going really dark. So she gets into rock and roll, and she's hanging out with the rich kids that are bilingual and understand rock and roll, and she gets into Rolling Stones, and she parties really hard, and then she out-parties all these kids, and she's disappointed by like the lack of energy of these like rock and roll guys, and she ends up venturing into the world of salsa, into like the poor neighborhoods of a city in the southern coast called Cali. And this whole adventure is it's just like fascinating because you see this woman going into like this deep journey into darkness that she ends up becoming a prostitute at the end, like fighting against every possible standard that was set up for her. And you know, there's gangs in the stories, and there's like all this description of this universe that was very close to what my universe was like. And I remember finishing the book and having that experience of like that you finish the book and then you go to the beginning of the book again. And there was a dedication. The book was dedicated to a woman. And it said, this book is dedicated to Clarisol, but not anymore because she became so much like my heroine that she doesn't deserve it anymore. And I was obsessed with this character, and I was obsessed with the fact that there was like a person that was real that had inspired this adventure, and that I was experiencing all this stuff through a book. And it was almost as having the same experiences in real life, but a lot safer, which was very appropriate. And years later, like actually like a couple years ago, through all this crazy social media stuff, and being really obsessed with this book to the point that like I keep correspondence with like the editors of the books, and I've become friends. The book has recently been translated to French by this guy Bernardo, and I correspond to him because he did an interview with the character that inspired the book. But it was published in French, and my French is not good enough. So I wrote to him and I said, look, this is ironic because I'm obsessed with this character that inspired this book, that inspired you so much that you made the effort to translate it and take it out of like a colloquial universe to the Paris Review. But I can't read the interview that you did with her because it's in French. So he was very kind to translate it to me. And he said, you should befriend her in Facebook. So I was like, okay. So I sent her like, I was like, how do you find her? And he gave me the real name to how to find her, and I found her. And then like last year on April's Fools, I got to work and I'm in the office and I'm checking my email and I check Facebook, and there's a message from Clarisol Lemos Ruiz, who is the muse that inspired the book. And she says, and who are you? And I'm like, I am a fan of the author, and I guess somehow a fan of you. And she's like, so what do you want to know? And I conversed with her about how like I had never thought about having a conversation with this person because it was clear to me that it was a fiction. But that in all these years of reading and rereading this book, from being the same age of the characters in the book to being an adult and like understanding this is a mirror of who I used to be, it never occurred to me that I had nothing to tell to this character that had been so important and shaped me so much throughout my entire life. And she got pissed. She said, I'm not a ghost. If you want to be my friend on Facebook, you have to have a conversation with me. So we've been having this amazing conversation. So there's something to be said about books and literature and the opportunities to see yourself in that sort of a mirror.